Wolf Coyote? What's that? Hello, my name is Wade DeWalby, and welcome to another documentary stream. Sorry, I wasn't close to the microphone. Now, obviously, this was a request from Foster Chane. I'm not saying it right. By a comment that I'm making, and I'm going to talk about the project Wolf Coyote, Dingo, and Foxlander. Now, that seems to be a mouthful and kind of ridiculous, but it is really more my project I've been working on, including with the werewolf spaceplane concept, two-stage spaceplane. Wolf Coyote is a shorter term for two probes of the main purpose for Mars. Now, I'm not as well as a balloonist, or I should say, somebody that knows how balloons work, but I'm pretty sure that vacuum would be works for that. Now, I do have drawings of it, but I'm kind of a bit lazy right now, but I could definitely do it. Now, I changed a little bit of it. I'm going to remove the back shell of it. If you see my other streams about it, I removed the back shell of it because why not? And Foxlander is still in development. Already finished the, I should say, no, Dingo Lander. That's the Dingo Lander. It's the largest of the landers. But Wolf Coyote are supposed to be two probes. Now, what I mean two probes is, well, they're spheres. Now, I talked about this in some of my streams. Now, the balloon, I don't know how big it would be, but basically, it is a balloon type that is a sphere. And it's pretty big. It depends on its, stables. It has heat shields on it. Now, the purpose is in launch. There's two varieties for it to be launched. One is with the Delta rocket, or, oh, no, wait, Atlas. Apology me. Atlas rocket, Delta, SLS, maybe not because it's too expensive, somewhere cheap. Second is possibly the werewolf spaceplane, which would be like just like the space shuttle, but it'll be launched in the far side of the moon, and then of course the werewolf spaceplane will land and do some other tests and experiments and go with their business in the, I should say, lunar werewolf spaceplane program I've been talking about, and it's really cool. Now, two reasons. Now, after launch, they are two probes. Now, my main goal is to keep, I have a little small quote. Every single, no debris gets left behind. Means that debris has to be a probe. So in my thing, anything like a fairing or anything else will be a probe, which means that the odds of the success will be to a minimum of length. So, why? Well, crazy ideas of things, and I narrowed them down and canceled them because it might be ridiculous or they probably be something, except for the werewolf spaceplane. So, the first phase, I probably talked about this, but I'm not sure about the Dingo Lander. So, I call them Mars Transit, or I should say Earth Transit Engine. This is the first phase. Now, it's just like the engine on the Clementine. You heard of the probe called Clementine? Went to the moon, but it failed. It was supposed to go to an asteroid. It had a stage that was actually a satellite. So what I was thinking is a throttleable engine with solar panels, and not just that, it will have a camera. And now it's going to have something like toys. What I mean toys? Well, plastics and things to demonstrate kids is to tell kids that space is dangerous and very bad for your health if you have a toy. Because I know that sounds weird for an autistic person like me, that I'm 18, but it's basically to demonstrate anything in the odds. Now, all of that is being held on. Now, the size of this is about this big. Maybe bigger, but it has to be small enough to fit in fairing, because in the werewolf spaceplane fairing, and it has to fit, well, the standards of a fairing. Definitely fit on a rocket, but depends. So once it reaches to Mars, it's going to do a backflip. And what's going to do is going to rotate around and then activate the engine. Now, it's going to run out of fuel But their mission is not over. Just like Marco A and Marco B, these guys are going to orbit. Now, it depends on the mission. They could possibly do a close approach for the first time of Phobos and Deimos. High resolution, even though they're bad, there will be two arms on these engines that I just talked about, which we'll call, I'm not going to call them anything furryish. I'm just going to call them, I should say, Earth and then Mars. Earth Transit Orbiter and Mars Transit Orbiter. So yeah, the Mars Transit Orbiter is the final stage. That's the thing that will take the wolf, coyote, dingo, and fox down to the surface. Now, it's gonna probably have its own thrusters, just like what is it called? Viking. It's gonna be like that, Viking lander. If you don't know what that is, go look at it. It's pretty cool. It was the first landers actually do dubbed there. So the mission is to go to Mars with small probes. And so as soon as the probe gets to a minimum area, probe, the Earth Transit Orbiter is gonna detach from the Mars Transit Orbiter because it's gonna run out of fuel. But it's gonna have remain fuel for positioning and other stuff to do observant. Yeah, it's gonna have its own experiments. It's gonna have cameras. It's gonna have a lot of stuff on it. Honors and maybe even you. Yeah, you're gonna ride on the rocket just like the rest of them on each chip. But instead of a chip, we're gonna do something else. Now, I was gonna have a lander with two. The early designs I made for this lander was actually have to be the first video game on the surface and to play from Earth to Mars. Now, that might sound ridiculous, but I thought that would be ridiculous. So I decided to just do just more realistic because, we probably would figure it out. And I didn't know that there was a CD disc that came from the Mars Phoenix lander, which we did about that because they were doing something bad from Red Bull. I'll explain that in other streams that I did about what was going on and why it was that. It was a video also that I added in my playlist, and it was blocked because of Red Bull, even though Mars broke. Okay, enough of that. So the Earth transit will go to Phobos or Deimos, depending on it. Get close approach, maybe do flybys and do a roundabout. But then, of course, it's going to be re-entry time. The Mars one is going to do a small burn to get as close as possible. And it's going to actually probably reach to the atmosphere. So the atmosphere will drag on the spacecraft. Just thought about this. It's going to drag it. The Wolf Coyote. I'm just going to call him Wolf Coyote. It has to. So it's going to use the drag just like normal, but it's going to keep orbiting in that atmosphere. But eventually will decay. Now for the landing site, there has to be plans of how much. So that will be planned by good mathematicians. So I'm not a mathematician. I am just a designer. I'm not even in college yet. And this is just my experience of being how smart and intelligent I am. And this is an idea that maybe come true. It's like Elon Musk. His dreams came true. Never know. Even though I don't have enough money. But it surely would work. And with enough people to appreciate me. So once it gets to Mars, those two probes, except for Wolf Coyote, Wolf Coyote will decay. The other one, which is the Mars orbiter, will go do a survey. So it will have the same thing, but a bit smaller. But it would be same size, but it would be a smaller size because it's only designed to just get in orbit around Mars or etc. Maybe some changes if there is the real one, which in real life, there'll be some changes. But this is the basic concept. If you're a math musician, you guys will figure it out and we might work together. I would love to have you guys just help work this out, especially the electronics for the wearable space plane, because I really need people to come together and just make something amazing. But it's not popular, and I need to be popular, and it's just a harsh life of me, and I just want to have happiness. Now, Wolf Coyote is gonna finally Wolf Coyote. Now, of course, the Backshell. Now, there are some other features. Would I have like a this Backshell, like a saucer, or should I have it like this? There was a lot of designs I made for the lander, which the lander for the Wolf Coyote is going to sit on the heat shield. Yeah, that's right. The heat shield is going to be a freaking lander. I always wondered, but it's not going to survive the fall. But don't need to worry. Under there is going to be engines under there. 3. They're gimbal, and they will actually slow down descent. As soon as the parachute pops, heat shield deploys, it's going to go like this, and it's going to start its descent. And there's going to be 2 probes, which is Wolf Coyote, and this is the Fox lander. It's a heat shield, and there's an arm, cameras, microphone, you name it, Betty. You got everything. Maybe a rover, but it's going to land. It's going to have multiple tanks because the idea is to test all liquids, to put anything, such as tanks of water, oxygen, liquid oxygen, put materials on the surface, maybe polymers, maybe anything liquid, or like to test on the surface to see what happens. Just for other experiments. Do chemistry on Mars manually, or I should say, robotically. Now, after that, the Backshell is a lander that may resemble to the InSight lander, but that's because it's so expensive. I'm going to have to make it my own lander, which would be impossible to make because I'm not good at it. I really don't know what's going to look like. So you guys are going to have to figure it out because I don't know. I'm just going to guess that's going to be my early designs were going to be, it's going to look exactly exactly like the heat shield, but without the heat shield ablator, just a carbon fiber alloy. And a parachute would be like this. We detach, like this. And the upper path is gonna, my early designs, it's the parachute would still be on, and then once it reaches really close, it's gonna use a little rocket and then flip its side up and land. That was my earliest designs of Wolf Coyote. I didn't even know what the name to those 2. So, and the other one was supposed to have a little rocket that we use, and it's going to have a little gunpowder. It's going to shoot and make a big explosive hole that will make sure and the rover will pop out. But that will probably be the big lander. The lander was supposed to have a Backshell attached to it permanently. And solar panels do full back-in, self-cleaning system of the quote-unquote crab lander or dingo lander. I was going to call it the crab lander, but I decided to just keep on the furry subject and to call it the dingo because I had no other words. I already had wolf. I already had that. So there it is. So yeah. It's a project that might work. But later on, it will be a power descent. My probability is that ferret is going to be, by the way, the Chicago lander. Oh, I forgot about that. The Chicago lander is specifically designed to contact Chicago. What do I mean like that? It's going to basically connect to those radio towers. A reference to Rampage. And what it's going to do is it's going to try to find the right angle. It's going to be the most boringest lander, but it's going to be very weird. It's going to be the solar panels that's going to, all probes have solar panels on the back to power it once it reaches Mars. That's the cruise half. It's going to land. It's going to parachute. It's going to have the antenna in the middle, solar panels, landing legs, and even a crappy camera, which would be a very low resolution just to prove that we're on Mars, because cameras are always fun with photography. I'm not saying it right. So that is just going to do that. It's cheap, So after all that, the odds of survival is very likely. A success mission, be incredible if everything makes it, but you never know about Mars. Mars curse. You got to remember. By the way, the lander has 3 backup telemetry systems. They will all work together. One of them is on standby, in the case this one is off, it's going to have to make sure that's going to land, because I am not letting anybody, I mean nobody, especially the dingo lander, is going to survive. It's supposed to have, it will survive at least low areas. Even though if the land legs don't pop out, or if it doesn't, its crash tolerance will be very high, but it would be completely damaged. It also has backup batteries more than anything else. It's going to have solar panels that will retract, extend outwards. It's going to have a really tough body. It's going to have self-cleaning system yet again. It's going to do more things, probably. And now, about Wolf Coyote probes, there are 2 exploration probes. I have talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about it because he wanted to know what's that. Thank you for this, Chane, because I was wondering if people would notice me. So, if you were actually from the link that I put on this stream, you're in the right place. However, so yeah, if anybody likes this, please let me know in the comments later, or now, or somewhere. But I mean, I would love to see this in reality. But the Wolf Coyote, what's that? What did they do? Why are they so important? It's going to be the first ever balloon on the surface of Mars. It's going to be flown basically 100 feet above the surface. It's not going to go like around. It's going to stay at the altitude permanently. It's not going to go any lower. If there's any low levels, it can't go to, it's going to go around Mars, except for Olympus Mons, anywhere above 100 feet around the normal area. But it's going to be, Wolf is going to look for terrain, such as water and all that stuff. It can stay using fins, stay in position. May have a turbojet inside using electricity like a fan. It's going to compress the air of the carbon, and then just, I don't know, it's just tiny thing. It's going to be like a soda can. Yeah, you should call it the soda can probe. But yeah, the antenna is located up in the balloon, and the balloons will be inflated in landing. Once we're ready, once the Fox lander has landed, which won't have landing legs, this is going to hit the ground, just dung. And what it's going to do is that later on, me or somebody else is at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory at the area. They can put a command in, and then when we're ready, like, by the way, all of them are going to have the first ever wind turbine. What do I mean? It's going to be a small foldable turbine. It's going to be a small thing. It's going to generate maybe max power, maybe 10 volts. It's going to be small. But since, of course, Mars has very little, it's going to have a difference for its survival. It can work. It can recharge in the night, maybe. And the solar panels will be. Oh, don't worry about those dogs. I'm sorry. I can't. So it's going to, panels are going to be like this. And they're going to extend outwards again on the Fox lander. We're going to have a carbon fiber thing on the middle of it when it stages, but that could be a radiator also. Yeah, and the solar panels will be on the dust ground, which might make it dirty, but it's going to auto self-clean. They can retract or retract by meanings, making sure that everything has to be worked, and possibly those balloons actually will last for about 20 years until it runs out. That's my estimate. Unless if you guys probably know, it's just the priority is 20 years. That is a long time for those balloons. Since they're run by solar powered and they're like, oh, that's kind of loud. Since they're solar powered, they will eventually go into they will stay, pretty much at the same time. Wolf will go to look terrain. Coyote will look for probes. Its main priority is to find the Mars polar lander, because I love that thing. Even though it was a failure, we really need to know what happened to it. Where there's no solid evidence to this day that there is no impact site or anything. It's also going to look for other areas such as the Mars Global Surveyor or Mars climate orbiter, which may crash somewhere. I tried looking for it, but apparently it's going to try to figure out where things are, find the mysteries of these failed landers, Schiaparelli lander, landers that had made it, Mars 2020, Mars Curiosity rover, Mars Opportunity rover, Mars Spirit rover, you name it, anything that is man-made. Coyote will go there, take pictures. It has two cameras, one that rotates around, one that is focused downwards, and it actually is designed to take pictures of the surface. They both are the same. Once they're done, which probably will take a while because of where the wind direction is, if there's a dust storms, don't worry. The solar panels will retract, except for the wolf coyote. They can't retract. They're stick around it, but they're still, since they're so small, the odds of they're recharging, and how would they hibernate? They're gonna have an extra battery, which that would be very dubbed, but it's gonna use a low powered systems as much as power to keep itself alive. Now, since it may go higher, maybe 200 feet. I'm not sure, but at least we'll stay above where the dangers are. Now, the odds are hitting a mountain are pretty small since there's a lot of craters. It may land somewhere around maybe somewhere like the peninsula, somewhere around there. But it's gonna try to use as much rockets as possible, you know, just to get down there safely without failure. Apparently, other countries have failed. Just like it will also go take pictures of Beagle 2 lander. But its main priority is to find. But if it can't find it, I guess it is along its way. Once the wind is in the right direction, it will go to a lander or rover or etc. Or Wolf will probably go find materials, things that have hit it, and investigate. Much more better than a rover. They will basically, except for the polar regions, it probably get very cold, but it probably be very quick and have. That's why there's props in there, just in case if it's too cold for the experiments or the probe itself. It may cause some things such as shrinking of the balloon and reduce its life. So it's got to be careful where it goes. But 20 years is a long time. Even if I probably won't last that long because how people will, like me, will get old and that quickly. It depends on the health. So, Wolf Coyote probes. I'm still working on Dingo Lander, but I might give you some good updates. Maybe, maybe not, but I'm working on it by myself. I just can't imagine those solar panels just coming out. Makes me so happy. On the just cool, and like they drop down, just really cool. I mean, I wish I had animation for it. Which, if you're an animationist, definitely tell me, and I would tell you the sketches because I do know how to draw and I'm pretty good a little bit. But I'll show you. But I think I need to do a 0.2 design of it. What do you think is best? Do you think the other one's better or not? One that flips upside down, lands, or just a normal lander? That's a lot of things. So that is the Wolf Coyote project. That's a lot of probes. I'm also trying to figure out another thing. I ask myself, what can be the smallest lander rover thing that you could, or the cheapest to get to Mars? And I really don't know. But it's going to find probes, such as maybe the Deep Space 2 probes, which will be impossible to find, by the way. Or it could be something else that could find somewhere else. But really, I don't know what's next. Whatever takes us next is the future. I'm Wade the Wallaby. I'll see you guys in the next live stream.